The massive space station Nexus Prime floated silently in the void between galaxies, its crystalline walls glowing with ancient power. For the first time in 3,000 years, every member of the Galactic Council had been summoned for an emergency meeting. The station's corridors buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different alien species hurried toward the central chamber. Elder Vorthkai of the Ethereal Collective stood at the center of the Great Hall, his translucent form shimmering with worry. His 4 eyes scanned the assembled delegates as they took their positions around the circular chamber. The towering saurians with their scaled skin and razor teeth. The floating void walkers who existed as pure energy. The insect-like hive masters with their 1,000 clicking voices. All of them waited in tense silence. "We have a problem," Vorthkai announced, his voice carrying through the translation devices that allowed all species to understand each other. "A very big problem." The holographic display in the center of the chamber flickered to life, showing a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. What should have been a quiet, controlled world was now the source of galactic panic. Commander Ty-Minute stood on the bridge of the human starship New Dawn, completely unaware that his existence was causing fear across the galaxy. He was a tall man with kind eyes and steady hands, the kind of leader who inspired confidence in his crew. Navigation Officer Sora worked at her station nearby, plotting their course through space with skills that impressed even veteran spacefaring species. "Sir, we're picking up some unusual readings from the outer system," reported Communications Specialist Jinho, his fingers dancing across the control panel. At 25, he was one of the youngest officers in the human space fleet, but his talent for languages had already made him famous among alien traders. Back in the council chamber, Emergency Coordinator Kreltak, a being that looked like a walking crystal formation, projected data streams into the air. The numbers told a frightening story. Humanity had broken free from their solar system only 50 years ago, but they were already exploring regions of space that other species had taken centuries to reach. "Look at these expansion rates," Kreltak said, his voice ringing like breaking glass. "They've established colonies on 17 worlds. They've made contact with 43 different species. Their technology advances faster than our computers can track." General Thexmore of the Saurian Empire leaned forward on his powerful legs, his yellow eyes gleaming. "How is this possible? Our projections showed they would remain primitive for at least another 1,000 years. The truth was something the Council had hidden for 50,000 years. Humans were never supposed to be on Earth. They were refugees from an ancient war, a species so dangerous that the Council had wiped their memories and dumped them on a backwater planet to keep them contained. Captain Hyun Woo commanded humanity's fastest exploration vessel, the Star Runner. At 32, he had already discovered more new worlds than most alien captains found in their entire careers. His crew loved him because he never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. His enemies respected him because he had never lost a battle, but also never started one unless absolutely necessary. Commander Eugene ran the supply lines that kept human colonies fed and protected. Her logistics network was so efficient that alien economists were studying it as a new form of mathematics. She could move cargo through space routes that other species considered impossible, and she did it with a smile that made even the grumpiest alien traders want to help her. The council members shifted uncomfortably as they watched the data. Every human achievement made them more nervous. These people were supposed to be simple, peaceful, and most importantly, ignorant of their true nature. "They are asking questions," reported Spymaster Zilquen, a shadow creature who could blend with darkness itself. "Their scientists are finding things that don't match our planted evidence. Their historians are discovering gaps in their own past. Dr. Bora found metal fragments in Earth's crust that are from starships, not meteors." Archive Keeper Melthon accessed the forbidden files that only the Council was allowed to see. The hologram showed ancient battles between massive fleets, worlds burning under weapons that could crack planets in half. At the center of it all were human warriors whose tactical genius had nearly conquered the galaxy. "The Stormbringers," whispered Elder Vorthkai. "That's what they called themselves. One human general could outthink a dozen of our best strategists. One human soldier was worth 10 of anyone else." Lieutenant Dongho worked in his engineering lab aboard the research vessel Discovery, completely unaware that his innovations were causing panic among galactic leaders. His latest invention could generate power from space dust, something that alien scientists had declared impossible. Medical Officer Sun Hee had just discovered a cure for a disease that had plagued 3 different species for centuries. The Council watched their carefully ordered galaxy beginning to change. Species that had obeyed Council law for millennia were starting to question why they had never heard of these amazing humans before. Trade routes were shifting toward human space. Young aliens were learning human languages and human ideas about freedom and individual rights. "They're spreading faster than a virus," growled General Thexmore. "And they're making friends everywhere they go." Elder Vorthkai looked around the chamber at faces filled with fear and confusion. The great secret that had kept the galaxy stable was beginning to crumble. Soon, humanity would learn the truth about their past, and when that happened, everything would change. "Initiate emergency protocols," he commanded. "They must never learn what we did to them." But deep in his ancient heart, Vorthkai suspected it was already too late. Archive Keeper Melthon's crystalline body pulsed with ancient light as he accessed the most forbidden files in galactic history. The other council members watched in nervous silence as holographic images filled the chamber, showing events from 50,000 years ago that were never supposed to be revealed. The first image showed a massive fleet of sleek silver ships moving through space like a school of deadly fish. These were human vessels from the old days, when Earth was just a legend and humanity ruled a third of the galaxy under the name of the Terran hegemony. They were called the Stormbringers. Melthon's voice echoed through the chamber like distant thunder. No species in galactic history had ever fought like them. The hologram shifted to show a battle above a red planet. Human ships, outnumbered 10 to 1, danced between enemy fire with impossible grace. Their tactics were so advanced that alien commanders couldn't predict their movements. Captain Kang, a human with steel-gray eyes and scars across his face, commanded the lead ship with strategies that seemed to come from nowhere. Elder Vorthkai remembered those days with a shudder. His own people, the Ethereal Collective, had tried to negotiate with the humans. General Yoon, a woman whose smile could charm diplomats and whose mind could plan victories that saved entire worlds, had listened to their offers politely before explaining why humanity would never surrender. "We don't fight to conquer," General Yoon had said during the famous peace talks. "We fight to survive. And we're very, very good at surviving." The Council forces had learned this the hard way. Commander May, barely 25 years old, had held off 3 different alien fleets at the Battle of the Twin Suns. Her defensive strategies were so brilliant that military academies across the galaxy still studied them, though they never mentioned she was human. But the war had taken its toll on everyone. The hologram now showed the final days of the conflict. Human worlds were burning. Their mighty fleet was reduced to scattered survivors. The proud Terran hegemony was dying, but they were taking half the galaxy with them. Captain Hawan stood on the bridge of the last human dreadnought, watching enemy ships surround his position. His crew was exhausted, their weapons nearly empty, their shields failing. But in his eyes burned the same fire that had made humanity the most feared force in known space. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "they're demanding our surrender." Captain Hawan looked at his crew, then at the enemy fleet, then at the evacuation ships carrying the last human civilians to safety. He made a choice that would echo through history. "Tell them we'll consider their terms," he said quietly. "And prepare the quantum cascade." What happened next became known as the sacrifice of Hawan. The human captain activated his ship's power core overload, creating a massive explosion that destroyed the enemy fleet and gave the human refugees time to escape. But the blast also created a space-time distortion that scattered the refugee ships across the galaxy. "We found them dying on a dozen different worlds," Melthon continued, his light dimming with what might have been shame. "Their ships were broken, their technology failing, their people sick and desperate." The Council had faced a choice. They could let humanity die out completely, or they could try something that had never been attempted before. They chose mercy, but it was a mercy wrapped in lies. "We gathered all the survivors." Elder Vorthkai's voice was heavy with old guilt. 17,000 humans from scattered refugee camps. "We told them we had found them a new home, a beautiful garden world where they could start over." The hologram showed Earth as it was 50,000 years ago, green and blue and perfect for human life. The Council's ships landed in what would someday be called Africa, and the human refugees stumbled out, grateful to be alive. But the Council wasn't finished. Dr. Veltar, the master of genetic sciences, had prepared a special gift for humanity. Memory erasure on a species-wide scale. Technology reduction that would strip away everything they had learned about space travel and advanced weapons. A genetic lock that would keep them from developing too quickly. "We wanted to study them," Dr. Veltar had explained to the Council all those years ago. "See how a warrior species would develop without the pressures of galactic conflict. They would be our perfect test subjects." The process took only a few hours. 17,000 humans went to sleep as survivors of the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. They woke up as primitive hunter-gatherers with no memory of the stars they had once commanded. "We gave them stone tools and simple language," Melthon reported. We planted evidence of primitive evolution. We made them believe they had always been on Earth, always been simple, always been peaceful. But genetics don't lie, and the warrior spirit runs deeper than memory. The hologram now showed modern humans, and the similarities were impossible to ignore. Lieutenant Bora's tactical assessments used the same logical patterns as ancient General Yoon. Engineer Dongho's inventions followed design principles pioneered by the old Terran engineers. Dr. Sun He's medical techniques echoed healing methods from the lost hegemony. Every generation, more of the old abilities surface, Dr. Veltar reported nervously. They adapt faster than our models predict. They innovate beyond our genetic locks. They lead when they should follow. Captain Jae-hyun had solved a trade dispute between 3 alien species using negotiation tactics that perfectly matched those used by the legendary human diplomats. Commander UNA's exploration teams moved through unknown space with the same fearless efficiency as the old Stormbringers. The warrior code is still there, General Thexmore growled. Hidden but not gone. They're remembering who they used to be. Elder Vorthkai looked around the chamber at the faces of beings who had thought themselves clever 50,000 years ago. They had tried to cage the storm, but storms cannot be contained forever. Captain Minute-Ho stood calmly on the bridge of the UES Harmony as alarms blared around him. The peaceful Keth-Mori trading convoy ahead was under attack by Void Corsairs, and the alien merchants were calling for help on all frequencies. How many enemy ships? Minute-Ho asked his tactical officer. 12 Corsair vessels, sir, replied Tactical Officer Eun-ji, her fingers dancing over the weapons console. The Keth-Mori have only 3 cargo ships and no weapons. Minute-Ho nodded slowly. Any other species would have called for backup, waited for orders, or simply avoided the fight. But something deep in his mind, something he didn't understand, was already working out the battle plan. All crew to battle stations, he announced. We're going in. The Harmony dove toward the battle like a hunting bird. The Void Corsairs were expecting easy prey, not a human warship with tactics they had never seen before. Within minutes, Eun-ji had disabled half their fleet using maneuvers that shouldn't have been possible. How are they doing this? Demanded Corsair Captain Vexthal as his ship spun helplessly through space. Their vessel is smaller than ours. But humans fight differently than other species. They don't follow the standard battle rules that everyone else learns in military school. They adapt, they improvise, they find solutions that nobody else would think of. The Keth-Mori Captain Silthara watched in amazement as the human ship danced between enemy vessels, its weapons striking with surgical precision. Not one Corsair ship was destroyed, but all of them were disabled and helpless. The humans had won without killing anyone. UES Harmony, this is Captain Silthara, the alien merchant transmitted. How did you know our ship configurations? How did you predict our defensive patterns? Communications Officer Wu Jin looked puzzled as he translated the message. He had somehow learned 17 different Keth-Mori dialects in just a few hours of listening to their transmissions. This should have been impossible, but it felt natural to him. We just watched and learned, Captain Minute-Ho replied simply. He didn't mention that the battle tactics had come to him like half-remembered dreams, or that every move felt familiar even though he had never fought Corsairs before. Medical Officer Haijin beamed down to the damaged Keth-Mori ships to treat the wounded. Her techniques were so advanced that the alien doctors couldn't understand how she was healing injuries they considered fatal. She worked with a confidence that amazed everyone, including herself. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out every day. Humans were making contact with alien species and doing things that shouldn't have been possible for such a young spacefaring civilization. When the scholarly Vorthan faced a quantum plague that was destroying their vast libraries of knowledge, Admiral Subin arrived with a research vessel and a solution that defied all known science. Dr. Chang Minute worked for 3 straight days without sleep, developing a cure using principles that council scientists claimed were impossible. Your medical techniques don't follow our understanding of biology, Vorthan Scholar Prime Kethlan told Dr. Chang Minute as they watched the plague disappear from infected data crystals. We just tried things until something worked, Dr. Chang Minute replied with a tired smile. He didn't mention that the cure had come to him in a flash of inspiration that felt like remembering rather than discovering. Back at Nexus Prime, the Council watched their carefully ordered galaxy begin to change. Captain Sung-Ho had established humanity's first embassy on Crossroads Station, the neutral trading post where dozens of species came to do business. Ambassador Su-young was supposed to be a simple diplomat from a primitive world. Instead, she was conducting negotiations with 5 different alien governments at the same time, creating trade agreements that benefited everyone involved. Her methods were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. She's not following standard diplomatic protocols, reported Council observer Zilmoth. She's creating new ones that work better than ours. Navigator Ji-hoon discovered stable wormhole routes that cut interstellar travel time by more than half. His exploration techniques found shortcuts through space that alien navigators had missed for thousands of years. When asked how he did it, he just shrugged and said he looked for patterns that felt right. Xenoarchaeologist NAI was causing even bigger problems for the Council. Her excavations on ancient worlds were uncovering evidence that didn't match the official galactic histories. She found ruins that were too old, artifacts that used technologies that weren't supposed to exist, and genetic samples that suggested species had evolved differently than the records claimed. The timeline doesn't match, NAI reported to her research team as they examined crystalline structures on a dead world. These buildings are 50,000 years older than they should be. Engineer Kyung-ho developed shield harmonics that made human vessels nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. His innovations were based on energy patterns that he claimed just felt natural, even though no human had ever studied advanced shield technology before. Each human achievement sent waves of confusion through alien communities. The Keth Mori began asking why they had never heard of humans before their recent appearance. The Vorthan wondered how such a young species could solve problems that had puzzled them for centuries. The peaceful architects questioned why the Council had never mentioned these remarkable newcomers. Species that had never questioned galactic authority were starting to think for themselves. Young aliens were learning human languages and human concepts about individual freedom and representative government. Trade routes were shifting toward human space because humans offered better deals and kept their promises. They are not just expanding, Emergency Coordinator Kreltak reported to the panicking Council. They're changing everything they touch. Other species trust them more than they trust us. Elder Vorthkai watched the reports with growing dread. Humanity was becoming the center of a new galactic community, one that didn't need the Council's guidance or control. The secret they had kept for 50,000 years was becoming harder to maintain every day. The massive Council fleet assembled in the darkness between stars, their ships forming a wall of metal and energy that stretched for thousands of kilometers. War leader Grekthon of the Saurian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Galactic Authority, watching his tactical displays with growing confidence. This will be simple, Grekthon told his officers, his scaled face showing satisfaction. We arrive at Earth, we make our demands, and the humans surrender. They are still a primitive species, no matter what tricks they've learned. The Council had decided on Protocol Omega after weeks of desperate debate. They would reveal the truth to humanity, but only part of it. They would tell the humans they were relocated refugees, then offer them a choice: return to a controlled world where they would be safe and cared for, or face the combined might of the galactic powers. General Commander Vexmar commanded the second wave of ships, each one armed with weapons that could crack planets. He had studied human expansion patterns and felt certain they would surrender when faced with superior force. After all, every other species had eventually learned to respect Council authority. But thousands of light years away, Admiral Junho was not preparing to surrender. He stood in the command center of Lunar Base, Earth's moon, surrounded by displays showing ship movements throughout the solar system. His calm face showed no fear, only the quiet concentration of a master strategist preparing for the most important battle of his life. Sir, the Council fleet will arrive in 6 hours, reported Intelligence Director in AE. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had spent months putting together pieces of a puzzle that the Council thought was invisible. Admiral Junho nodded slowly. Are our allies in position? Yes, sir. The Keth Mori fleet is holding at Jupiter. The Vorthan research vessels are stationed near Mars. The architect construction ships are ready at the asteroid belt. Inae had done the impossible. She had traced the inconsistencies in galactic records, followed the breadcrumbs of evidence that xenoarchaeologist NAI had uncovered, and connected them with the genetic anomalies that scientist Myung-hee had discovered in human DNA. The picture that emerged was shocking but undeniable. We know the truth, Inae had told Admiral Junho 3 weeks earlier. We know what they did to us. Dr. Saiwoo's archaeological expeditions had found the smoking gun, buried metal fragments that contained isotopes not found in Earth's solar system. Geneticist Myung-hee had discovered DNA sequences that matched samples from ancient alien databases. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans were not from Earth, and their primitive history was a carefully constructed lie. Captain Woo-sung commanded the HSV Truth Seeker, humanity's most advanced scout ship. He had been the one to make contact with the rebel alien factions, the species who had grown tired of Council secrecy and control. His diplomatic missions had created an alliance that the Council never saw coming. When the Council fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Earth, they expected to find a frightened primitive world begging for mercy. Instead, they found Admiral Junho waiting for them with the human defense fleet arranged in perfect battle formation. "Welcome to Sol System," Admiral Junho's transmission was broadcast on all frequencies. "We've been expecting you." War Leader Grekthon stared at his displays in confusion. The human ships were arranged in a pattern he didn't recognize, but something about it made his warrior instincts scream warnings. The formation looked almost like... "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "that's a hegemony battle pattern. But that's impossible. Those records were destroyed 50,000 years ago." The Council fleet suddenly found themselves facing more than just human vessels. Ships from 7 different species emerged from hiding spots throughout the solar system. The Keth Mori had brought their entire merchant marine, converted to carry defensive weapons. The Vorthan had armed their research vessels with experimental technologies. Even the peaceful architects had created massive shield generators to protect the human world. "This is Captain Taijung of the HSV Defiance," came another human transmission. "Council fleet, you are trespassing in sovereign human space. State your intentions." Commander Taijung's tactical display showed something that made War Leader Grekthon's blood run cold. Despite being outnumbered, the human alliance had positioned themselves perfectly. Every Council ship was exactly where human weapons would be most effective. Every escape route was blocked. Every tactical advantage the Council thought they had was gone. "How do they know our battle plans?" Grekthon demanded. "These formations are classified Council military secrets." But Admiral Junho knew because the knowledge was written in his genes, passed down from ancestors who had faced these same alien fleets 50,000 years ago. The tactical genius that had once made humanity the terror of the galaxy was awakening in a new generation. "We don't want to fight," Admiral Junho continued his broadcast. "We want the truth. We want to know why you lied to us. We want to know why you stole our history." The standoff continued for 3 days, but it was not a battle. Instead, it became a series of broadcasts that reached every corner of the galaxy. Captain Sominit transmitted archaeological evidence showing the gaps in human evolution. Dr. Hyunjung shared genetic proof of humanity's alien origins. Ambassador Youngho spoke directly to oppressed species throughout Council space. "We were prisoners," Youngho's words reached billions of beings across thousands of worlds. "But we chose to become something more than our captors intended." The Council's carefully maintained order began to crumble as species after species learned the truth. The humans had not only discovered their real history, they had gathered allies and evidence that exposed 50,000 years of lies. War Leader Grekthon looked at his tactical displays and realized with growing horror that the humans had already won. Not through superior weapons or numbers, but through something far more dangerous: the truth. The standoff above Earth lasted 3 days, but those 3 days changed the galaxy forever. Captain Sominit stood in the broadcast center of Lunar Base, speaking to billions of beings across thousands of worlds. Her voice was calm and clear as she shared the archaeological evidence that proved humanity's true origins. "We found metal in Earth's crust that came from starships," Sominit explained, holding up fragments that glowed with alien energy. "We found DNA in our bodies that matches extinct galactic species. We found ruins buried under our cities that are 50,000 years older than they should be." Across the galaxy, aliens watched in stunned silence as Dr. Hyunjung displayed genetic maps on their screens. The proof was undeniable. Humans were not primitive natives of Earth. They were the scattered survivors of an ancient civilization that had once challenged the entire galaxy. "The Council told us we were refugees," Dr. Hyunjung said, her scientific training keeping her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. "But they didn't tell us we were prisoners. They didn't tell us they had stolen our memories and our history." Ambassador Youngho spoke directly to the oppressed species of Council space, his words carrying the weight of shared suffering. "We know what it feels like to have your freedom taken away. We know what it means to be controlled by those who claim to know what's best for you." But humanity's response was not what the Council expected. Instead of demanding revenge or conquest, the humans offered something revolutionary: partnership. Captain Junseo opened the human medical databases to any species that needed them. "We don't want to hoard knowledge," he said during his broadcast. "We want to share it. Every cure we've found, every technique we've developed, belongs to everyone." Engineer Unsa made all human technological advances freely available to alien scientists. "Innovation works best when ideas can flow freely," she explained. "We invite you to learn from us, and we want to learn from you." The old Council structure began to crumble within weeks. The Keth-Mori were the first to officially break away, declaring their support for human ideals of free trade and mutual respect. The Vorthen followed, fascinated by human approaches to knowledge sharing. Even some of the Saurians began questioning why they had never been told about these remarkable beings. Fleet Admiral Dongjun found himself in an impossible position. The humans had elected him as their representative to a new galactic government, but that government didn't exist yet. Species were joining the human alliance faster than anyone could keep track of. "We need structure," Admiral Dongjun told the emergency assembly on Crossroads Station. "But not the old kind of structure. We need something that represents everyone, not just the powerful." Commander Hajin proposed turning the abandoned council chambers into something completely different. Instead of secret meeting rooms where decisions were made in darkness, she created the Memorial Gardens, a place where any being could come to honor those who had suffered under the old system. The crystal walls where the council had once hoarded their secrets became transparent displays showing the real history of the galaxy. The hidden archives were open to public access. The lies and cover-ups of 50,000 years were exposed to the light. Captain Seojin led the first joint exploration mission beyond the galactic rim, commanding a crew of volunteers from 30 different species. The ship itself was a symbol of the new order, human engineering combined with Vorthen science, Keth-Mori navigation, and architect construction techniques. "This is what cooperation looks like," Captain Seojin announced as her mixed crew worked together with an efficiency that amazed galactic observers. Different species, different skills, one goal, to explore the unknown together. Dr. UMI established the Galactic Medical Exchange in the abandoned Council medical facilities. Instead of restricting healing knowledge to approved species, she created a network where any being could access treatments for any condition. Diseases that had plagued certain species for millennia were cured within months. Diplomat J. Minute worked tirelessly to create the Species Rights Charter, a document that protected the autonomy and dignity of all sentient beings. For the first time in galactic history, every species had the right to self-determination, the right to their own history, and the right to refuse outside control. The former council members watched their empire of control dissolve, but many of them were surprised to find they were not punished. Elder Vorthkai, who had expected execution or imprisonment, instead found himself invited to join the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that Captain Minutei had established. "We're not interested in revenge," Captain Minutei explained to the former council leader. "We're interested in making sure this never happens again." Some of the old council fought the changes, but they found little support. War leader Grekthon attempted to rally the Saurian military, but his own officers refused to follow orders. They had seen what human leadership could accomplish and wanted to be part of something better. In his quiet quarters aboard the HSV New Horizon, Admiral Kyung Minute reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Former enemies were working together on joint projects. Ancient territorial disputes were being resolved through human-style mediation. Species that had been isolated for centuries were opening their borders to trade and cultural exchange. Personal log, Admiral Kyung Minute, he spoke to his recorder. 6 months ago, we didn't even know we had a real history. Today, we're helping to write a new future for the entire galaxy. The warrior spirit that had once made humanity feared across the stars had evolved into something the galaxy had never seen before, the ability to transform enemies into friends, to build bridges instead of walls, to create unity without conquest. The galaxy would never be the same, but for the first time in 50,000 years, it was truly free.